All right, abilities. I'm going to try to break this down really, really quickly. So I'm not going to lay out all of the various bonuses you get for each ability. I'm just going to tell you the breakpoints and which ones you need for which classes. If you are at all going for a frontline character, you want your strength to be as high as possible. And even then, strength doesn't really have any breakpoints to it. Strength determines your carrying capacity for all of your characters. So if you want to carry all of that awesome magical loot you find back to town to sell it, or to be more accurate, on keg shells, then you want your strength as high as possible. So I would never really consider strength a dump stat, even if you're playing a pure mage. Dexterity. Dexterity has very interesting breakpoints. Your first breakpoint for dexterity is 7. You can, if you need to, dump dexterity all the way down to 7 without suffering any ill effects for your character. However, to get any benefits from dexterity, you need to put it up to at least 15. That is where you will start seeing armor class improvements. And even then, you're not going to see your ballistic weapon improvements until dexterity 16. So if you can't get it up that high, do not worry about dexterity too much. Constitution. Constitution is really weird for breakpoints. So again, you can dump this to all the way to 7 if you have absolutely no concern for how many hit points you will have. You should have concern for how many hit points you will have, though. However, in order to get bonus hit points from Constitution, you have to get to Constitution 15. So again, you've got to raise it up quite a bit. If you are playing a warrior class, Barbarian, Fighter, Paladin, Ranger, you can then keep raising Constitution up to 18 to get more hit points per level. Any other class, it caps at 16. So you don't need to get this any higher than 16 if you're not playing a warrior class. Weird, right? Intelligence. Intelligence is your dump stat, unless you're a wizard, in which case you want it to be 18. It's that simple. Wisdom. Wisdom is a dump stat, unless you are a cleric or, strangely enough, a wizard. If you're a wizard, you want your wisdom to be at least 14. I'm probably not going to be able to get that high because I'm playing a fighter mage, but any of the magical spellcasters you want high wisdom in. And then finally, charisma. Charisma is a traditional dump stat in D&D, and you can dump it to 8 without any ill effects at all. However, this game does roll for reputation quite frequently, even at times when you wouldn't think it would be doing it. And your charisma is going to help your reputation values, and it's going to help any reactions that NPCs have to you. So having your charisma as high as possible is always a good thing. It is never a bad thing to run around with an 18 charisma. Now, you can kind of game the system and use other party members with higher charisma than your main character for a lot of your reaction rolls. But there are a couple of circumstances where it keys directly off of your main character. At which case, you're probably going to want to be using Algernon's Cloak to help make sure that that doesn't hurt you. Now, the reroll button. So, Enhanced Edition, the latest patch, was nice enough to give us this nice little thing of the total roll. Basically, the totaling up of all of these stats. Before then, you either had to do the math in your head, or you had to knock down all of these as far as they'd go and see how many actual points you had to spend. Okay, We don't need to do that anymore. We can actually just see the total roll. And then we can reroll and store those values that we like until we get the stats we want. Now, I'm not going to do this very often. Remember at the beginning of the stream, if you've been watching since the beginning of the stream, how I said I pre-genned a character? This is why. Because you can sit here doing this, or you can get a 90 right then and there. That works too. So this right here, this 90 is what I kind of consider probably the best goal to aim for. If you try to aim too high, you're just gonna be freaking clicking this reroll button until your fingers cramp up. But pretty much high 80s, 90, you'll want to go for that kind of attribute scores. This game, Baldur's Gate 1, isn't that bad when it comes to your starting abilities and the encounters you're going to have. Baldur's Gate 2, on the other hand, is hard and very save scummy, and you will want every advantage that you can get. So getting this high is always to your advantage. Now, if you don't want to do that, it's perfectly feasible to Google search, find a save editor, and just give your character the stats you want. I tend to like doing the reroll because, A, I feel like I didn't cheat if I do that. I know some people will disagree with me, but also, by doing it the reroll way, I like the way the stats look better. I get this sense that the character is more real by having those shortcomings in their stats. Either way, because we got this 90, we're going to roll with this. So we're going to dump our charisma. I'm going to be relying on Algernon's cloak and other party members. Build up our strength, which is actually a better strength than I got on my pre-gen character. Dexterity is going to be a must. We're going to dump our wisdom. I wish I didn't have to dump it that much, because like I said, getting that wisdom of 14 for all spellcasters is a good thing. And we're going to build up our intelligence and our constitution. And we basically have a perfect fighter mage setup. So once again, just a quick overview. I'm not going to go into the breakpoints this time. But if you're playing warrior class, you need strength. If you're playing a thief class or a ranged character, you need dexterity. Everyone needs constitution. Mages are the only ones who need wisdom. Need intelligence. Clerics and mages both need wisdom. And then every party hero could use charisma. So that's the TLDR of that. Skills. God. This is something we can get really, really in-depth into. So the question here definitely becomes, where is this character going? If you're just playing Baldur's Gate 1, long swords are probably the only thing you need to worry about. If you're playing Baldur's Gate 2 as well, which we are going to be doing, then we're going to be looking at different weapon loadouts that might be useful to us. I'm not going to go into all of the potential weapon loadouts. I'm going to worry a bit more about that when we actually get to Baldur's Gate 2 and it starts to matter. For now, I'm just going to reference you to Haeravon's guides. You can see the link below this stream. He talks about weapon loadouts in his Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition guide. We're going to be going for the perfect swordsman loadout, which is longswords and katanas. There aren't too many of the ways of magical katanas in Baldur's Gate 1, so I'm not going to worry about the katanas right now. I'm just going to worry about longswords. There are very good longswords in Baldur's Gate 1. And I'm also going to go with two-weapon style for this, because two-weapon style is the more powerful style in this game. Two-handed weapon is really, really good if you're a paladin, though. So if you're a paladin, consider two-handed weapon so you can wield Karsamir. But that's going to be our weapon loadout for now. Basically, every class is going to have different weapons you can choose from. Real quick, I'll just recommend that most classes are going to want to have access to a ranged weapon of some type. Ranged weapons are very powerful in these games. Every class has a ranged weapon they can select. If in doubt, put some abilities in ranged weapons first. Actually, I'm actually going to go back on this. Instead of putting into 2-weapon right off the bat, I'm actually going to put into a ranged weapon right off the bat. And we're going to have access to longbows. Alright. Spells. Alright. So, because I'm playing a fighter mage, I am going to want mage armor. But what other spells are we going to want? Well, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you that I am going to pick Identify, because I don't like paying gold to know what my items are. Real quick, I'm just going to go over which of these spells you should consider for starting builds. This is, in many ways, a very taste-oriented decision. Like I said, because we're doing a fighter mage, I want the extra armor, and I want to be able to identify the magical gear I find. And yes, you will be finding magical gear quite quickly. So having Identify early is a good thing. Your winner spells in this are Blindness. Blindness is a good debuff all the way through the games. Basically, any melee character is hurt by Blindness. Charm Person. Charm Person is another good debuff. It starts to lose its potency into the late game of Baldur's Gate 2. And it quickly gets equipped by other party disablers, such as Confusion. I am partial to Chromatic Orb. This is one of my personal favorites. This is another one that scales very, very well. But it is definitely outclassed by Magic Missile, which is overall just one of the best damage spells in this game. Especially when you start chaining it with other spells, Magic Missile is extremely useful. Do not underestimate it. We could go with Familiar. I will probably just worry about when I find a Find Familiar scroll to get my Familiar. Infravision is, I'm just going to mention this quickly. This is one of the reasons why Divination is so easy to drop. Infravision is a complete waste of time. Because if one of your party members can see something with Infravision, your entire party can see it. So there's no reason to worry about Infravision. This is a special spell just for wild mages. Even if you're playing a wild mage, I am not sure really how useful I would consider these spells. I think I would just prefer to just go with full-on useful spells as opposed to wasting the extra spell that I'm getting on a spell that empowers other spells, maybe? Protection from Evil is useful at the beginning of the game, but it quickly gets eclipsed by Magic Circle. Protection from Petrification is extremely useful, but you can wait until you get a scroll of it, so I would not pick it as one of your first spells. Shield is an additional defensive buff that I'll probably pick up later for my fighter mage. And then Sleep. Sleep is your early game party kill. This spell just ends fights. In the early parts of Baldur's Gate 1, this is your go-to spell. But I'll be able to find a scroll of it really quickly. Hey guys, it's Divine Erdrick. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more content coming soon. You can also follow me at twitch.tv/derdrick or on Twitter at Divine Erdrick. Thanks again.